Hello, this is John Hanratty. I'm going to continue with the 77 or 78 KUGB Nationals finals, which was one of the best championships I've ever seen. Certainly contained a ton of the most amazing fights you'd ever see. Where we finished, kind of went through the kata finals, and Steve Cattle came second, Terry O'Neill took first. This was an ongoing battle between Steve, or Stumpy as we called him, and Terry O'Neill. In later years, John Holsworth tended to dominate, and then Frank Brennan, of course, certainly dominated after that. In the ladies, Sandy Hopkins won with Unsu, and Shelley McLaughlin with Jin came second. Sandy also dominated this competition for years. She was a fantastic kata competitor. The other thing that was unusual about this competition, it was the first time anybody or any of us had seen team kata. Now, it was only ladies team kata, but it was really different. It was a really good standard too, considering that they'd only decided to put this event on about 2 or 3 weeks before the Nationals, and that was all the notice they had, and so they hardly had any practice time, but they did quite a good job. And I think South Tyneside won at Kankusho, looking at my old notes here. And then Liverpool came second with Jin. And I believe that was Shelley McLaughlin was in that team. Then Exeter, Birkenhead, Hadley and Leeds. That was the only 6 teams that were in there, but they were the first time we'd seen Team Kata. Kind of a different event. Impressive, the way they performed the kata, considering that you had very little time. I thought it was good. It was interesting. And after that, I think they started including men's team kata as well. Anyway, if we go back to the kumite, which is what everybody gets up with. In the last 8, John Bolton actually almost beat Terry, as I'm looking at my notes here. And it went to 2 overtimes. Until Terry scored with a Jodan Mawashi, and he got a ippon for it, and that was that match. And Phil Duval, who Terry came up against in the semis, was fighting Frank Brennan, and that was back and forwards, but then Phil managed to get a Wazari on Frank. There's 5 seconds to go, so Frank didn't stand a chance of catching up there. And the Mick Rag and Johnson fight, Rag was penalised. Sorry, not Mick Rag was penalised. Van Johnson was penalised for going Jogai all the time. And there wasn't a score in that, but Mick Rag got the decision because of the Jogai, with Johnson going out all the time. So that's the final decision. Cattle up against Jimmy Poynton, just punched him right out of it and went on. And that was Jimmy Poynton, Bob Poynton's brother. So the first semi-final between Terry O'Neill and Phil Duval, I described that. Terry did spectacular kick, knocked out Phil. To his credit, Phil was unconscious on the floor, but he did get up, and that's what people did then. And Terry was awarded ippon after discussion. So in the semi-final between Rag and Cattle, there was no score for 2 minutes, and they went into overtime, and Cattle, Stevie, immediately rushed in, but Rag counterpunched him and just smashed him right in the face, and he was given the Hansuka Chewy for that. And then the match continued with everybody continually dodging around the area. Stevie was given a Jogai Chewy, so this also went to overtime. And this wasn't unusual in these fights because the fighters were so good. One guy would get a point and the other guy would immediately come back, like just going like gangbusters and get a point again. And so in the first overtime, Rag attacked Gyakuzuki and Stevie countered, so that was Ayuchi. And again, Ayuchi. And then Rag attacked with Maigeri. Stevie blocked it, tried Kizami, but didn't get it. Then Kettle dived at him and got Gyakuzuki in so fast to his chest, it went boom. It sounded like a drum. And got Wazari for that. No further score, Stevie won. So that was on to the final, and they'd already done this 3 or 4 times before, and both were determined to win, which was impossible, of course. So it was fighting styles that were on show here. Terry was long leg kicker, different distances he attacked from, and Cattle was a puncher. He knew he had to get inside to get some kind of striking distance, and this he did. Every time Terry's foot came off the ground, Steve just charged right in, punching as he went. So Terry starts off with just a super fast Jodan Mawashi, but it missed, and when he attacked with it again, he hit Steve on the head. Steve went to the ground, and after a few seconds of inspection, he got up and Terry was given a chewy, just to tell him off for being a bad lad, but, you know, it happens. Immediately after they started, Terry rushed at Steve, jumped in the air and delivered a Tetsui strike to the top of his head. Stevie jumped up trying to avoid it and punching Terry as he did, but didn't quite make it, so Terry got the Wazari. Terry tried to complete this with a Jodan Mawashi, but Steve jumped in and countered with a Gyakuzuki, getting a Wazari. Again, a draw. In the second overtime, both of them were just going at it like gangbusters. Terry was trying things that you could only dream of doing. Often it looked like one of these karate kung fu movies, but he'd try stamping kicks to the chest, Jodan Mawashi, Ushiro Mawashi, spinning elbows, spinning back fists, but Stevie wasn't intimidated or put off. He kept dodging out of them and going back in, punching with just ferocity and determination. So Stevie actually got first score against Terry's Mawashi. Steve dived inside it and got a Jodan Suki Wazari. Terry increased his speed, if that would be possible, chased him around, finally cornered him, got a Maigeri through. That was Wazari, and there's another draw. So into the third one now, Steve attacked straight in, rushing to score with Jodan for Wazari, but Terry pulled off this technique he'd seen in an old film, I guess. He tried a Kizamizuki, a lead hand punch, dropped into a forward roll and brought his heel down into Steve's stomach as he rolled. And then he come up onto his feet, and Stevie had dived on top of him punching, but it's too late. Terry got the Wazari. And you'd have to be at Crystal Palace when these nationals were going on, because it was crowded. You couldn't buy a seat. It was chocker. There was like thousands of people spilled out on the floor, just this ring in the middle where the fighters were, and the atmosphere was amazing. Anyway, it was given a draw, but Stevie was so frustrated, he was convinced his punch had got in before that heel, but it didn't. So, another draw. This was the end of this third extension, and it was going to be a flag decision if they hadn't got through to this. But it was back and forth, defense, offense. It was a draw again. Neither side won with the technique. It was a judge's decision, and it was 3-1 for Terry. I was disappointed because I could have watched that kind of thing all night. The other thing I was disappointed in with, I thought they both should have got first place. But that was just my opinion, because it was probably the best fight I have ever seen in my life. The only one that ever came close to this was the ESCA Championships in Italy in '89. That was amazing, and there was just good old-fashioned hard karate, no mats, no mitts, get in, do your thing, win your point, get out. Anyway, that was that. The Team Kumite, there was tons of teams entered this year. I was on a Liverpool Triangle B team. We didn't get through, but the A team did, and in the A team, if I remember rightly, I think Terry got beat in the team match by Toyakwai team. I don't know where they were from. I can't really remember where they were from. But it just proved, he wasn't invincible. So the semi-final beat Kirkdale Team A and Liverpool Triangle Team B. We got beat. Kirkdale won 2-1. And the final was again between Liverpool Red Triangle and Kirkdale. And Liverpool Red Triangle won 4-1. So that was their 9th win in this event. So they'd only been going for 11 years, and winning 9 times out of 11 wasn't bad. As I say, this was probably one of the most exciting competitions I've ever seen and been involved in. And it was just amazing. And I can't tell you the atmosphere at Crystal Palace. And it was the same like that every time I went there. To watch these guys who are now legends do their stuff, and then when you see what is purported to be world-class karate these days, some of it is. There's some very good athletes, don't get me wrong. I certainly admire the athleticism and the expertise of these guys. Their timing and their fitness levels are amazing. You have to work to get that far. But it was nothing compared to what used to be in the 70s and 80s. Now, this was before Frank broke onto the scene big time. I mean, he was only a young guy when this was going on, 77. And when he broke onto the scene, it took it all to a different level. As I said, the ESCA Championships I watched in 89. I was there for a meeting when we formed the World Shotokan Karate Association. So they invited me over to watch the ESCA Championships. It's probably one of the best competitions I've seen, next to Crystal Palace. So they were doing the same thing in Europe that we were doing in the UK. The standard was really, really high, particularly in Germany and Italy. France, not so much. Netherlands were pretty big at that time. You had guys like Wildrot there who fought Tanaka in the Shoto Cup and stuff like this. But the Italian competition that year was brilliant. I remember the final fights. Frank was against an Italian guy, and Frank got DQ'd for just blasting him. It was a DQ. I mean, he just about wiped his nose off his face. But the fights up until then were amazing. Ronnie Christopher in particular. Ronnie was a fearsome fighter. He still is, I imagine. Ronnie Cannon. All these guys were just brilliant fighters. And you went into it wholeheartedly. It was 100% prosecution of the technique. You just went in with your technique, whatever happened. And you've seen just the amazing stuff that went on. I don't say maybe we should go back to that, but I think the attitude and the mental state of the people who did fight in these competitions was a lot more, intense than it is now. Nowadays, you got to watch it if you offend somebody by saying the next man up on the mat. They want you to say the next person up and all this stuff. Of course, I'm a bit too old to change my ways, but, it is what it is. So anyway, that's my impressions of fights in the 70s and competition in the 70s. Do I miss it? Yeah. Do I think karate has gone for the worse? I don't know. There's a lot more people doing it. It takes a lot of work for you to get to be world champion, whether it was then or now. There's a lot of dedication. There's a lot of training involved. And I admire that from anybody. So there you go. Anyway, nice chatting again. I'll talk to you again. I may miss a week or two here. I'm going to go play golf down in Palm Springs, talk to a few old karate buddies in California. If I can, I'll get a couple of them and we'll sit down and have a chat and you can listen to that. So, as always, comments welcome. Take care.